Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I am Spencer.
There's some pitfalls in trying to offer these simple bite-sized definitions. The first, that these are complex concepts concerning both economics and government, so the short definitions will be incomplete, and the second being that these concepts aren't always mutually exclusive. Most modern states actually combine elements of more than one of these. And the third being that historical states define the terms differently. Some of the terms refer strictly to economic systems, like capitalism, for example, while others, like fascism, also refer to government and economic systems, such as communism and fascism. So for capitalism, it is an economic system in which all or most of the means of production are privately owned and operated, and investment of capital and the production, distribution, and prices of commodities, the goods and services, are determined mainly in a free market rather than by the state. So basically, lowly regulated, privately owned businesses. Socialism is the state ownership of common property or the state ownership of the means of production. So a purely socialist state would be one in which the state owns and operates the means of production. However, nearly all modern capitalist countries combine socialism and capitalism. And communism refers to community ownership of property, with the end goal being complete social equality via economic equality. Communism argues that all labor belongs to the individual laborer. No man can own another man's body, which I do agree with that statement, at least. Anybody's work that they put in should be owned by them, and they should have the means to earn a wage that they actually deserve and that they can live off of. We're going to get into a PragerU video here and see what they have to say about capitalism versus socialism.
Capitalism versus socialism. We can sum up each economic system in one line. Capitalism is based on human greed. Socialism is based on human need. Right? No. Wrong. So it's exactly
no.
Been on Amazon lately? Each of the thousands of products Amazon offers represents the work of people who believe they have something you want or need. If they're right, they prosper. If they're wrong, they don't. That's how the free market works. It encourages people to improve their lives by satisfying the needs of others.
Which I just think is kind of funny, because what about the workers who are running the Amazon factories or warehouses? I mean, are these business owners also improving their lives and satisfying their needs? Or are they just trying to satisfy the needs of the customer?
No one starts a business making a thing or providing a service for themselves. They start a business to make things or provide services for others. I speak from personal experience. When I was the CEO of the company that owns Carl's Jr. and Hardee's restaurant, we spent millions of dollars every year trying to determine what customers wanted. If our customers didn't like something, we changed it, and fast. Because if we didn't, our competitors would, unintended, eat us for lunch. The consumer, that's you, has the ultimate power. In effect, you vote with every dollar you spend. In a socialist economy, the government has the ultimate power.
Is that really a good thing that people are voting with their dollars?
I mean, obviously not.
Because he's making it
With
sound
elections, you don't want money to be in elections. That's interesting. But obviously he was saying that we are voting on the products that...
That's true. Yeah. I guess I misinterpreted that.
Best, or I don't know. But it's still, I don't have too much to say about it, I guess, right now. But
yeah,
it's still just interesting how they, like you mentioned earlier, definitely the workers aren't really talked much about too, which then they might argue that, well, the workers are part of the people who give it power. But at the end of the day, although it should be the people who have power, the people with the money buying these products should be the ones with the power. But at the end of the day, the businesses are the ones setting the prices.
Yeah.
And especially right now, they keep raising prices and they're claiming inflation, but you can also look at their profits and see how that, I think, if we're going to talk about inflation, I mean, we're not necessarily right now, but if you're going to talk about inflation, you also need to factor in company profits. You can't talk about inflation and rising prices without talking about the company profits as well. Because if everybody is suffering, then the companies should be suffering as well. It's not fair for companies to succeed and profit while everyone else is struggling to survive, in a sense, to get their basic needs.
This price gouging, it takes away the power from the consumer because, the less money you have, the less able you are to vote with your dollars on a product.
100%.
It decides what you get from a limited supply, it decides should exist. Instead of millions of people making millions of decisions about what they want, a few people, government elites, decide what people should have and how much they should pay for it. Not surprisingly, they always get it wrong. Have you ever noticed that late-stage socialist failures always run out of essential items like toilet paper? Of course, this isn't a problem for those who have the right connections with the right people. Those chosen few get whatever they want. But everyone...
Are they saying that this has never happened under capitalist society? Because
we literally just had a toilet paper shortage at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, we had a baby formula shortage.
And, baby formula shortage too.
I would think that it would be better for essential needs to be controlled by the government because it is less likely if you're actually running the means of productions properly and actually distributing everything to everybody. This is less likely to happen than under a capitalist society, under a free market where everything's just kind of goes with the flow instead of being regulated.
Yeah. And I mean, it still could have happened in any other system, but I don't know why they're making this claim that this stuff doesn't ever happen in capitalism.
Right.
Bitch, no, this can happen in any system. One system isn't inherently better than the next, and any system can devolve into fascism as well.
Yes.
Because I know there's always the claim that, socialism is going to lead to fascism. Well, capitalism can lead to fascism too. If only 1% of the population controls the whole wealth, what do you think that is?
Fascism has nothing to do with economics ultimately. I mean, it's integrated, but it's not determined by the economic system you're living under.
No.
It's a completely different concept.
It's just interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting.
What else is out of plot? Venezuela, once the richest country in South America, is the most recent example of socialism driving a prosperous country into an economic ditch. Now, maybe you think it's an unfair example. I'm not sure why, but okay. We'll ignore the fact that leftist activists celebrated it as a great socialist success right up until it wasn't. But what about Western European countries? Don't they have socialist economies? People seem pretty happy there. Why can't we have what they have?
All right, hold on. I want to visit that Venezuela thing really quickly.
Yeah.
Because I had read an article. I don't think I need to show the whole article. I guess we can refer back to it if we need to. But basically what happened in Venezuela was the country was controlling the means of production, but they weren't actively producing what was necessary. That's not a problem with socialism. That's just a problem with how the government was producing.
So were they importing all their goods
basically, then? And I mean, you fact check me if I'm wrong, but what I understood from this article was that they had built a bunch of factories to build the essential goods that people needed, and then they never actually produced anything with them. So these were just empty factories that weren't doing anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's probably a whole bunch of dynamics that
of course
lead, and it's not
with Venezuela
all socialism's fault that happened. What? Right. How would you even be able to pin it?
And the country's already falling apart because they have an official leader, but then they had the previous leader who, the military was following. The military wasn't following the official leader of Venezuela. They were following this past leader who they were loyal to from before.
Oh.
So, there was a whole mess of their government, outside of the socialist aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always more. It usually takes a couple of
it would be
things to cause something like that.
Yeah. It would be similar to if our military decided to support Trump after the election instead of Joe Biden.
Yeah, and then fell into factions kind of.
Right,
in a way.
Exactly. So that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what he has to say about Europe.
Free healthcare,
What?
free college, stronger unions. Good question. And the answer may surprise you. There are no socialist countries in Australia. Most are just as capitalist as the United States. The only difference,
No.
and it's a big one, is that they offer more government benefits than the U.S. does. We can argue about the cost of these benefits and the point at which they reduce individual initiative, thus doing more harm than good. Scandinavians have been debating those.
But these people, he just said, like, if you look at the index of happiness, I forget what the official term for it is. Like, people in these countries are happier because they have these socialist policies in place. And yes, they are still technically capitalist, but they're nowhere near as capitalist as the United States.
Yeah, I find that a very odd way of thinking, I guess, that if we, the people, are happy with, if we have healthcare, if everyone has healthcare, food, water, the basic necessities that people need to survive, that people will be lazy. Like, that just blows my mind that
Right.
people think capitalism saves us from laziness. That is wrong. You're going to tell me, like, I don't like the term lazy personally, because I feel like there's a lot of depth to why someone may be lazy. It's not just, their needs are met, they're going to be lazy.
Right.
It's not, they hate their job, they're going to be, like, it's not one. There's a bunch of things that can lead to someone being lazy, and again, I don't like the word lazy, because in a sense, when you use the word lazy, you are saying that you are better than people that are lazy, because that is kind of a negative term in a sense.
And a lot of the times, like, laziness, so to speak, is not all the time, but many times, like, it is tied to mental health.
Yeah. And sometimes your body just needs to rest. We can rest. Humans should rest. That's normal.
Humans should rest, relax, be able to enjoy hobbies. Like, your life shouldn't just be work and go home. Work, go home. Like, that's not a fulfilling
depressing.
life. That's the capitalist man.
Yeah, that always confuses me when people phrase it like that, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah.
But
questions for years. But only a free market capitalist economy can produce the wealth necessary to sustain all the supposedly free stuff Europeans enjoy.
Yeah, how's that working out in America so far?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not gonna, they obviously have, like, utilized capitalism over there since they use money.
Of course.
But I don't understand. I don't know. I guess I'm just confused
he thinks
on
that under capitalism, everybody has enough money to just spend it on healthcare and food, like, which is false. It's not true.
That is very false.
Like, this free stuff, we wouldn't even have to tax the working class or the middle class to get these benefits to be provided by the government. Like, there are definitely ways of taxing the rich, like the super rich.
Yeah.
The people with more than enough money for multiple lifetimes.
And there was a graph, maybe we can find it in a little bit here, about how, what was it, the 1940s or something? It showed how the gap between working class and rich was, like, small, so it was normal, what you want it to be, but then they instituted, I think, potentially tax breaks and stuff, so then you see the rich getting richer and the middle class staying the same. So the gap is increasing after these instituted policies, which don't help anyone but the rich. So I don't understand sometimes why, if you're not in the rich, you're defending them. But I think a lot of that comes from the mentality that someday I'll be rich. And I'm not saying, no, like, you don't have the potential to be rich. You do, but not that kind of wealth, unless you do some sketchy-ish things, I would say. But
practices.
Yes. And you shouldn't want to do those things just to get there, because, I mean, I wouldn't want to. I just wouldn't feel great about myself, I guess.
I don't know.
That's what it took to get there, so.
People like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this other thing he's saying, like, there's so many Scandinavians that are against having free healthcare and free education. And I mean, maybe I'm sure there's some people out there who believe in that opinion, but from what I
Yeah.
understand, at least from the data I've seen, most people are pretty happy with that system.
I wonder if it's somewhat they're being fed like propaganda in their, like the people who are starting to feel against it in a way are being fed like propaganda, whether it's online, TV, media, whatever it is, that is making them be like, oh, this system sucks. But trust me, I don't think you want to live in a system where ending up in the hospital can throw you into extreme debt. It's not a good system.
Yeah, that's not a great feeling, and it makes life a lot
No.
harder.
Especially since they clearly already have like their tax budget dollars organized to account for it. So why would you want to change this?
Right.
I just don't understand this obsession with money, I guess.
Yeah.
Money isn't, I understand that there's a point where money can bring happiness. Obviously, if you make a livable wage where you can afford everything you need and have extra money for hobbies or interests, then yes, then I can say that that amount of money could buy happiness. But this billions, sure, you could say I would be happy if I had that kind of money. I guess I'm not going to say that you wouldn't find things to spend it on to potentially make you happy, but I just don't think money itself, because true happiness, in my opinion, comes from internally, not external things. So the money is only going to be able to buy you external things like a house, a yacht, a private jet, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want. But it's still not going to make you feel good about yourself. Like money itself isn't going to make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, and you shouldn't rely on money just for your basic needs to be met. Like, you shouldn't have to rely. You can use it if you have the excess money. You can absolutely use it to provide for yourself. But for those people who don't have the money to provide for themselves, they shouldn't have to rely on it for their mental health and for their physical health even. Like, money should just be a bonus. You know, it shouldn't be the end all be all. I mean,
like you're saying we should take care of each other as citizens. Like,
yeah.
We should make sure that every citizen is taken care of.
Exactly.
It's kind of what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that 1000%. Like, why would you not want to take care of each other? That's an odd take to have. Like, I don't want to take care of my neighbor. Or what?
Right. Like, this person doesn't do the job that I think is a good enough job, so they don't even deserve to have their basic needs met. Like, what is that kind of thinking? Like that.
Yeah.
Or like, I had to deal with poverty and had to rise up, so everyone else should too. Like, if you know how bad that experience is, why would you wish that upon other people, especially strangers?
It's just a very sad take.
Yeah.
Because whether or not you like everyone or agree with all the decisions they make, you should still want people to be okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Definitely. To get the free stuff, after all, you have to create enough wealth to generate enough tax revenue to pay for everything the government gives away. Without capitalism, you're Venezuela. In a 2015 speech at Harvard, Denmark's prime minister took great pains to make this point. I know that some people in the U.S. associate the Nordic model with socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy. So when you point to Denmark as a paragon of socialism, you're really singing the praises of capitalism. The more capitalism, the less socialism you need.
No, because we're praising the socialist policies that they have.
Yes.
We're not saying that it's a socialist economy. We're saying that it is a government which has socialist policies that provide for the people instead of leaving everyone to fend for themselves.
Look at America since 2017. Policy of lower taxes, less government regulation, that's more capitalism, has led to a robust economic expansion, something thought impossible just a few years earlier. Unemployment, notably among minority groups, typically most at risk for poverty, is at a generational low. Economic expansion gets people off welfare and into work. That's less socialism. None of this requires a degree in economics. Common sense is all you need.
Just because someone is employed doesn't mean that they're making enough money to provide for themselves, though.
Nor that they're happy,
Right.
because happiness is important if we're gonna.
And yeah,
Like, it basically sounds like he's saying we got rid of some of these socialist policies to force people into working. But why do some people have this obsession with forcing people to do things? I do not get it. I will
yeah,
never understand that. Because if people don't want to work, what is forcing these people to work going to do?
right.
How is that going to help anyone? They're not going to enjoy. I say we should focus more on helping people find what they enjoy in life and encouraging them to pursue that, whatever that
Right.
is,
Giving people the time
rather than
to,
being like, you have to get a job
yeah,
just to work, just so that you can make money. Like, that is a sad
yeah. I
existence.
mean,
I do not want that kind of existence.
and like even if people's basic needs are met, they're still going to want additional things that they would have to spend money on. It's not like,
Yeah,
I mean, there are a few people out there who like will just live off of their basic needs, but I mean, most people want that extra money to buy nice things, and they'll be motivated to work for that reason. Like, oh, like I want to buy a Nintendo Switch. Obviously, the government's not going to provide that for me, so I'm going to go work a job and buy this Nintendo Switch. You know what I'm saying?
do you imagine the government providing everyone with a Nintendo Switch?
That would be pretty cool. But
I think that would I think that would create world peace.
yeah, and then,
We could all play Mario Party together, or Mario Kart.
oh yes. But I think another thing with all of his graphs and statistics about how we took away socialist policies, you know, when COVID first started and the economy took a complete dip, you know, when that economy started rising again? When we gave people stimulus checks, because that's more money flowing through the economy. And that actually is what improved the economy in that case, was people getting stimulus checks and people actually making the money off of their unemployment they need to survive, or at least close to it. So it actually was not these capitalist policies that improved the economy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an economist
Yeah,
person,
economists.
economist,
Yeah.
but I just feel like you can just kind of look at trends and be like, this is like, I don't think you have to fully, I don't know,
Okay.
people
You
may
don't have,
disagree with me there, and that's fine. But you can just kind of look at the trends of the economy and the policies that were instituted right before the drops. And I don't know. I think that, I mean, I'm not going to say I've looked at it, so I'm not going to try to make a claim here about anything, but I'm just saying it would be something good to look into, just what policies changed right before and not the term of or right before per se, but maybe a couple of years, because it takes a couple of years for things to take effect.
Yeah.
So I've never understood why when a new president comes in and all of a sudden gas prices rise, they're like, oh, it's that president's fault. Like, usually it's going to take some time from previous terms, policies to start kicking into, like, for us to start noticing effect. Things don't happen instantaneously, unfortunately.
gas prices aren't even controlled by the president, really.
No, they're not.
Big issue is that there are certain Republican lawmakers who don't want to vote against price gouging. Like, that's why when you look at the profits of these oil companies, how much they've risen after they've raised their gas prices, it kind of really shows you, oh, hey, this is a manufactured shortage, or maybe there was a shortage initially, but they just kept riding the wave. Like, I mean, we haven't run out of gas anywhere.
No,
At
yeah.
least as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't heard of that.
I don't think we've ran out of gas. I just think, I mean, there are people who always bring up that one pipeline, but that wouldn't have done. And I don't know. A lot of people, I think, just get fed talking points,
Yeah.
and then they just regurgitate those talking points, which I understand. That is so easy. If someone just fed me talking points, do you know how easy that would be? I wouldn't have to think ever. That'd be easy.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they don't think either. I'm just saying that you should just think about the points that you're talking about and be like, does this actually make sense with anything? Not just politics, with anything. You should think, does this actually make sense? And if you're kind of questioning it, like, well, I want to know, you should always delve deeper into it, not just take what someone tells you and run with it.
Yeah.
Because you also want to always think about that person's motive, like we've stated before. Like, why do they want me to regurgitate this information? Like, what is motivating them to push this narrative onto me, in a sense?
And it's okay to gain influence from other people. You just have to be skeptical about it.
That's why it's so frustrating to see young people praising socialism and criticizing capitalism. It's bad enough that they're working against their own interests. Better job prospects, better wages, personal freedom.
How do we get better wages under capitalism? Exactly, is my question to him.
If you have good business owners and CEOs who aren't taking advantage of the people under them, but that hardly ever happens, especially in large corporations.
You have to rely on the goodwill of the people in an environment and economy that relies on how much capital you have. And, people are motivated by greed and power, and that power comes from money. Obviously, they're not going to want to redistribute that money. Definitely not more freedom when you don't even have the freedom to, get the health care you need. You don't have the freedom, I have the freedom to choose between keeping my lights on and buying groceries. Wow, I feel so free.
It's not freedom, definitely. Because at least they always make this claim that communism or socialism is so bad because the government controls how we live. What do you think is happening right now? Like, when you can't afford to, if you had to move, or like, I just feel like people think they have this sort of wealth that allows them freedom to flee if we need to, but you don't really have that right now. I don't know if there's any statistics, but I do not think that most Americans have that much money in their savings account, unfortunately. And with this system, some people can hardly even afford a roof over their head, or food, or water. At least in the communism, socialism countries, they are provided those things. Yes, I can see why that could be concerning. But it's also, how is that much different or worse, I guess, than what we have right now? If we're not making sure that every American makes enough to where they do have this money that they can use for freedom, I guess, then it's not working. If that makes sense.
This is the statistic I was looking for here. 56% of Americans are unable to cover an unexpected $1,000 bill with savings, according to a telephone survey of more than 1,000 adults conducted in January of 2022. So that's over half the population could not cover an unexpected $1,000 bill with their savings, which is ridiculous. Like, people should be able to provide for themselves.
And I don't know why that can always be such like a dividing factor too, that divides us as Americans. Like, some Americans in that sense are then going to be like, well, they should plan better, they should financially do this better, they should do XYZ. But why do we attack each other? Why can't we be there for each other and help each other and stand up for each other?
Some of those people try to live on minimum wage even without savings.
Oh yeah, and I highly doubt most of them, if they ended up with a stroke, something like that neurologically can destroy you and your future, I don't think, even with whatever savings you have, even if it's more than that $1,000, I don't think that you could afford all of everything that is going to require, from the hospital stay to the therapy,
the medication
after. It's just very interesting how people choose to divide each other.
But they're also working against the interest of the less fortunate. Capitalism leads to economic democracy.
No.
Socialism leads to the economic dictatorship of the elite. Always and everywhere.
No.
So beware what you ask for. Just might get.
I think that's already happening.
The author of The Capitalist Comeback, Traeger.
Yeah, okay. So we are definitely under the power of the elite right now under capitalism. So that is a terrible argument.
Yes.
I mean, all of our laws are pretty much dictated by the elite, who own all of the money that, they donate to different lawmakers and government officials. But that's fine, I guess. Personally believe in democratic socialism, basically redistributing the wealth more equally, offering more essential social services like healthcare and education. The rich should be taxed not only on their income, but also on the capital they invest their money into. Inherently creates a system in which the poor suffer and the rich prosper. There's not a way to have a capitalist society in which no one suffers due to the economic system, because capitalism always leads to exploitation of the working class. But with socialist policies, the economy will improve, because when the rich don't redistribute their wealth, their money is not flowing through the economy because they're storing their excess money instead of spending it. So if this excess wealth was redistributed to the working class would be spending this money, and thus more money would be flowing into the economy. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah, so wealth hoarding is definitely a huge issue. Because especially if you're talking about how to make the economy better or how it should be, the people who are hoarding their wealth are not helping the economy at all.
Yeah.
If anything, I think in my head, I don't know if this makes sense, but we'll say person A has $1 million and person B only has $1. I think if person A keeps hoarding their wealth, like basically they drive inflation as well, because they decrease the value of the dollar. In my head, I don't know if that makes sense, but because yes, but they have so much of it that it decreases person B's value, not as a person, but just their monetary value. Yes, that's why people need to not, and it's kind of like sad too, I think, people who hoard wealth, because it's definitely a scarcity mindset. Like, why? It's just very interesting, especially people who have businesses and know that they're gonna keep having income coming in. Like, I don't understand why you think you need to hoard wealth. And granted, it's not in this system, it's not up to me. Like, I would never want to control someone and tell them they have to spend their money, but I just sometimes wonder why they're hoarding it. It's just interesting.
The way they'll invest it into capital. So like a house or a boat, and like their investment will increase over time without them actually spending any other money. So they're actually gaining the money back that they spent. Like for once they sell that, like the house or the boat or whatever that they bought. So the money just sits there and increases in value for them, but it's also decreasing the value of the dollar because they're not spending it.
Yes.
And there's another aspect of this too, which is even if you don't, we don't want to tax the rich anymore and they're already being taxed, fine. Then let's dig into our military budget. The taxpayer tab total for the wars was about, since 9/11, totals $5 trillion, which is $16,000 per person. This is Harvard Kennedy Institute of Politics, Waste, Greed, and Fraud, the business that makes the world's greatest army. It's a great read. I suggest it. Basically, it's just about all of the neglect and basically fraud almost, even, I would say, that comes with our military spending, how much waste we have. And then if we want to look at this over here. This is the proposed discretionary budget for 2022 from the president, $1.5 trillion. Look how much of this is made up by our military here. And a lot of
that is insane. That is
insane. Then a lot of this stuff is stuff we don't even end up using. We'll just build a tank, never use it, send it out to Afghanistan, even more money and oil being wasted, polluting the environment and also wasting money, and then they'll just burn these things or they'll just abandon them, and our military never even uses them.
Yeah.
Like, that is so much of our military budget. Right,
and that's our money.
That is
like
what you're paying out of your paycheck.
Yes, that's our money.
So if we were a little more frugal about our military spending, doesn't mean we have to pull out of any wars or anything like that. Don't worry, you guys. But like, even if we just stopped creating all of this waste in our military, we could find the budget for more social services.
Yeah, I agree. If you look compared to other countries, what we spend on our budget compared to other countries, even if I want to say I've heard, I'd have to look into it, but I've heard that even if we cut it in half, we will still be spending more than any other country on our military budget. So we will be fine. We will still be able to defend ourselves if we cut it. And I'm not even suggesting we cut it in half, but we can definitely
even if we cut it into like a third or a fourth, that would still be a lot of money.
It's just interesting, especially because that's our money, guys. That's our tax dollars. Yeah. So
like, this is what we're spending our money on: waste, a lot of waste. It's not all waste, but it's a lot of waste.
And they're trying to cut other places, like education. They're trying to cut from that, which makes like no sense.
Budget versus I think 50% of our budget. And they want to cut the 7%
Yeah.
of something like education, which is already underfunded. Teachers buying their own school supplies is insane to me. Like, that's
That
ridiculous.
is that.
But like, we can't buy teachers some pencils, but we can buy, you know, like $100,000 plus tank. I don't know how much a tank costs exactly, but I would guess around that.
Yeah.
You know, tens of thousands at least. That just never even gets used and gets burned to the stake after being shipped off to Afghanistan or wherever.
I was just going to say it's unfortunate.
And I had a final point here. We also need to change our minimum wage so that it accounts for inflation. And there needs to be a way to pay for this increased wage from the profits of large corporations instead of by increasing prices. Because if you can't afford to pay your workers a living wage without overpricing your product, then you just should not be operating your business. Like, that should be a non-viable business.
And I've always had that conversation with my dad, in a sense that I'm like, they don't need to raise the prices. Like, the CEOs and the business owners can take a little bit of a pay cut, not a big one. I'm not trying to make you lose all your money, but they can take a little bit of a pay cut. And he's always like, oh, you think they'll do that? And I'm like, well, they should. Like, why? Well, I just don't like control. But I get, obviously, if you get to a certain point that, and they're not, but it also, why? Again, I just don't know why. Like, I don't know if I'll ever, because I don't know if I had billions of dollars and I knew people were dying on the street or weren't making enough to afford food for themselves, that makes you happy that you have that kind of money while people are starving?
$500 million instead of $1 billion. Like, come on. $500 million is more.
Yeah.
You know, you can take the pay cut. You will survive. You know, and you'll be fine, and you can still live in luxury.
Yeah, it's
not even taking away the luxury.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to buy the G4 instead of the G3 private plane? Like, oh no, what will you ever do?
Well, people can't even afford transportation to get to a job.
Take the bus and take an hour and 20 minutes to go a mile and a half.
Yeah, I feel like public transportation is going to vary by state, though, does. Unfortunately.
I've had some bad experiences with public transportation, so it's not a great system.
Yeah.
Like, most places I've lived don't have great public transportation, and I've only lived in America, so.
I know. Yeah, other countries, I've heard it's really great.
You're terrible at walkable cities, though.
Oh, yeah, that's.
And people wonder why Americans are so obese. You know,
but we could also easily restructure too. I mean, and okay, maybe not easily, but we could do it.
Bridges, like all kinds of things you could do. Like, even if you got to build like a little sky bridge for pedestrians in the middle of downtown, just elevate it. Like, even if that's what we had to do so we don't get rid of the roads, like, that's fine. Just do something so people can walk around more easily. And like, make everything not so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say get rid of the roads, but most people might not like that.
Well, the only thing is like.
And then like just have a parking ramp like right on the outskirt of downtown. So get rid of all the roads in downtown, and then just put like a parking ramp right on the outskirts so that you can park there still.
Yeah.
Like, you can drive.
Oh, sorry, you're saying so there would be a way to drive. Like, the only reason.
What do you mean? I guess not in downtown.
Opposed to getting rid of all roads completely is just because of like ambulances and police and things like that. They don't need to drive.
Oh, yeah.
So like, unless they all have helicopters or something, but that's expensive.
Well, yeah. And I guess I'm not saying, because they would still be the same size. It would just be more of a walkway, but you could maybe have it be also for emergency. Like, you can make it multifunctional, have it also be, if emergency vehicles need to get there, then they can still drive on it, and then just have a system that obviously warns people that they're coming. Even so that they don't get ran over.
Special tram, like a light rail or something.
Yeah, but again, that's the thing. We can figure this stuff out. It's not, yes, there's multiple solutions, and not one is necessarily going to be better than the other, but at least we can think of them and try something different. Like, I've never understood the mentality of wanting, I guess, I don't know. I understand that change can definitely be scary, but change is also good. And it's a part of growing as I would say, society. You want to try, and maybe it won't work. Maybe, let's say we try some socialist policies and they don't work and we don't like them. We can always go back and adjust it. Yeah, exactly. So I don't get the whole, I mean, I get it, because change is scary. Definitely. I will never say change is not scary, but it's also part of growth, and we need to grow as a society and just as people in general.
People have with socialism and communism by extent, like, I think they just equate socialism to control, which is not what it is. Socialism is not control over the people. Socialism might entail control over corporations, but corporations are not people, as much as they legally are, but they're not. I don't believe corporations are people, though. It's a collection.
It's like a abstract.
Of anything.
But yeah. I mean, the business owner is a person, but they have their
they are
own
not the business.
social, like they're a separate entity.
The business is something they own.
Exactly.
It's not a living, breathing thing. Like,
no.
But yeah, I think that's a notion people need to let go of, though. Socialism is not controlling the people. It's giving the people control back in their lives.
And control, like we've said, can happen in any system. It's not.
Yeah. Of course.
Capitalism doesn't protect us from being controlled. I don't know why people assume that it does.
Like, that's not what I'm trying to
No system is going. I mean, you could probably think of how could the government take control so that then we can institute maybe policies or laws that will prevent them from being able to do. We can definitely think of, it's good to think of, this could happen this way, so that you can come up with solutions for it, but don't use that as a fear tactic to stay away from it. Like, come up with a solution. If you're like, if the government controls food, then they can cut off giving us food and starve us. Okay, so then let's make it enact something where they're not allowed to. I don't know what we would do, but it's just, I like when people, instead of running from something because it's scary and change, like, let's kind of address it and think of solutions that will still let it work in a way. And again, if that doesn't work, we can always still change things. So I just don't like the mentality of it's a big boogeyman, because it's not. It's just a system. Just like capitalism is a system, socialism is a system, communism is a system. Nothing is inherently good or bad about either, or any of them, I guess. But
a little more good-hearted than they are. Like, maybe if everybody had a good amount of empathy in their hearts, like, I wouldn't be so opposed to capitalism. If people were actually willing to provide for people, I would, be more in favor of capitalism, because the idea of less control is appealing to me. But at the same time, when you don't have people acting ethically, control becomes necessary at a certain point. A certain amount of control, not complete control, but a certain amount of regulation and accountability.
Yeah. Regulation. I like that word.
Exactly.
Regulation, not control.
Exactly.
Just regulation. And I mean, like, what's any different from, let's say, I'm not going to say any specific company, but let's say company A is our main source of food in your area, and they just decide to cut you off from going, like, they just decide to shut down the store. How is that any different than if the government decides to stop sending you food? Like, you're still going to starve, but you're letting a company just make that decision. And you don't think that we should be able to regulate the companies, which is more concerning, in my opinion, than if the government were in control of it.
Even just raising prices, price
in a
gouging
sense.
Groceries, which is kind of happening right now.
I am not stating any system is better than the other, because we will never truly know unless we give it a try. But I don't like the mentality that capitalism is better. I mean, obviously, I understand capitalists want us to think that, because that's what works for them. Like, it's just, of course, they're going to say this is the best system because it's working for them. Like, they're above it. I don't know. It's just funny, because I feel like we all see that. Like, obviously, they're going to root for capitalism because they're quote unquote winning capitalism. Well, we're not. So it's just interesting sometimes. We have ideas of what we are always potentially going to do, but if you guys have anything you ever want us to talk about, let us know. Leave a comment here on this video.
You can leave a comment on this video right here on YouTube. You can also leave a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Yes. So just let us know, and we'll see you guys every day of the week.